So another project, I guess. As we've already spoke about, my engine is currently in Justy'n's car, so 2 Astra H VXRs. He's racing his in Time Attack. Don't use mine. He had an engine failure on a built engine with an S252 turbo, 400 horsepower, broke a cylinder wall. Fairly common on Z20s. I say fairly common. It happens more and more than it used to. I don't know why that is, but it's definitely a problem that other people have encountered. It is a weakness of the Z20 engine. You know, engine builders start doing wedging. There's arguments for and against wedging. I'm not going to get into any of those. I've never been a fan of big, expensive engine builds because, like anything, you get no guarantees. Even with, you know, spending thousands of pounds on an engine, you get no guarantees it's going to last. But in racing and competitive things, reliability is key, because if you look at most people competing in Time Attack, almost all of them suffer reliability problems, and it's almost always engine related, and that's really expensive. So that is the main reason we've kind of decided to go for an engine swap. Not because the Z20 can't make power. I'm not a Z20 hating or anything like that. It's primarily a reliability thing, and we know we can get more reliability from a different engine than we can from a Z20. Justy'n could easily go ahead and get another Z20 engine built, spend thousands of pounds on it, run it, and have a failure. He might not have a failure, but you know, it's like once it happens once, it's always in the back of your mind. It's always a potential. It's always something that can happen. And in my mind, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the hassle. So, yeah, K20 swap. Definitely a popular engine swap nowadays. Obviously, it's getting more and more popular as time goes by. There's many reasons for that. It is a good engine. Not that a Z20 is not. You know, these are pretty similar in terms of era of engine, but you know, there's just more money invested in this kind of thing. It's a better engine for performance applications. They're strong. You can put 450 horsepower through a stock engine with a turbo. You definitely couldn't do that with a Z20. You can't do that with a lot of engines. So that is almost all the power Justy'n's ever going to need for competing. And then if you want to go for more power, you know, you can build it. And the stock block and crank are known to do 650, 700 horsepower, which again is almost kind of unheard of from, you know, the perspective of a Z20. So that's the main reason we're going for this, really. It's you know, engine swaps are common in almost all other worlds where the OE engine is known to be not that strong. And K20s are the obvious one to go for because of, you know, how much power they can take and how strong they are. I mean, even in natural aspirated form, they're really high revving. They produce really good power. You know, the VTEC side of things, there's a lot of really good technology in this engine. The gearboxes are good. You can get loads of aftermarket parts for these. Again, this is a completely different world to Z20s. You can get billet blocks, billet cylinder heads, cool cam covers, loads of different aftermarket intakes. You can get straight cut gear sets, sequential gearboxes. You know, almost any aftermarket part you can think of, you can get them for the Hondas. And again, when you're wanting to kind of push the reliability aspects of something, well, you can get an uprated oil pump for these. You can't do that for a Z20. And when you want to build something for, you know, kind of motorsport purposes, you say reliability is so important. I mean, again, that's one of the reasons that Warren is only running 400 horsepower in his car, because reliability is key. And he knows any more than that, they are, you know, a ticking time bomb, really. even a built engine, they all go. You know, they don't all go, but they can go. They have the potential. So yeah, we're engine swapping it. This should be a relatively easy engine swap. It's actually a smaller engine. It's an inch taller, but other than that, it's actually more compact. The gearbox is slightly smaller. The diff location is very similar in terms of where we think the engine's going to sit roughly. I've done quite a lot of measurements. We want to try and use as many OE engine mounts as we can. Again, the advantage of using OE stuff is that you can just get it. You know, it's easy to replace. So yeah, we're going to try and use fairly OE mounts, maybe some upgrades, but of OE type fitment. It'll end up on obviously an aftermarket ECU, probably a Haltech. We will still be turbo in it, obviously. And so we're probably going to do an S257 this time. So a slightly bigger turbo than what Justy'n's got now, but we can go for a bigger exhaust housing because these engines will flow a lot more air than the Z20 would. And then with a bigger exhaust housing, S257, it'll make 500 horsepower, but we don't need that much power. You know, we can kind of rein it back, and then we've got all the turbo we need for the future. You know, if we at some point we decide to kind of build the engine, because that's the thing, we're putting in a stock engine to replace a built engine. That's how strong these engines are. So yeah, the first thing we need to do really is like plonk it in the engine bay and see how it fits. Hopefully it fits well. But yeah, the big challenges are the ECU side of things, drive shafts, and yeah, again, say reliability is key. So you know, we don't want to be doing anything that's going to be considered a compromise. So yeah, first job is to kind of plonk it in the engine bay. Right, so after a bit of engine crane work, it's never easy, especially when the engine's as built up as it is. Like, I wanted to take as few parts off it as possible. Luckily, I'm not too worried about the paintwork in the engine bay of my car, because I don't know, if it ever goes back together, it'll probably be, if it ever goes back together by somebody who wants to keep the car, it'll probably get the engine bay painted anyway. So yeah, the plan is actually to get it running in my car, use my car as like a mule car, and then once it is running, just transfer it to Justy'n's. There's no point in taking the engine out of Justy'n's car and leaving us with no cars, because Justy'n's car can be used as it is. Not that we can use anything at the minute, but yeah, the plan is to get it running in my car. So we've got the engine kind of plonked in. I know it'll need to come up more still, because the sump is obviously very low at that. It's hanging well at the bottom of the subframe. But I wanted to get it in, just start having a look at the widths of things, where engine mounts might go. So at this point, really, it starts to get. Luckily, the K20's got a nice flat sump, so we can actually start working off a trolley jack rather than having to have the engine crane in the way. We can literally just jack the engine in the middle, and then swivel it around and move it around a bit. Then try and kind of prop the engine where we think it wants to go. There will probably be revisions to this. The key point is getting the engine as square as possible, the right height, and obviously getting the drive shafts in the correct position, because we need the drive shafts to be as level and as flat as possible when the car is at ride height. So this is kind of, it's not the hardest part, but it's probably one of the easiest parts to get wrong, in that if we do get it wrong, we'll just give ourselves massive headaches in the future. And again, we'll give ourselves the unreliability that we're trying to solve. So yeah, getting the engine in the correct position is really important. So I can already see this engine mount. We hopefully can use the original one, which will bolt, maybe a combination of the two original engine mounts. Obviously, the engine's going to want to come a little bit further back yet. We've got basically no room for radiators. We've got a little bit of room for radiators. Yeah, the engine's going to want to come further back, and it'll obviously want to be leaned over slightly. So yeah, it's now just a case of trying to get it lined up and then starting to look at engine mounts. But yeah, the kind of thumbnail shot with the engine in the engine bay is there now. So yeah, Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.